if you're sitting here listening to this, like, I'm not an athlete.
Yeah, what does this have to do with
I'm
me?
45 years old.
I'm
not running L drills at 45 years old. The reason mobility is so important for us now, you and I, we're not athletes anymore, right? Or, in the real sense of the word. I guess CrossFit, they call everybody an athlete, but in the real sense of the word, we're dads, we have desk jobs, we're combating a lot of sedentary behavior. Mobility is important for us. Number one reason for pain management.
Yep.
Keeping ourselves pain-free. For example, the squat is a good example of this. If your ankles are limited in any way at all on a squat, or your upper back is not strong enough to be able to keep your chest up in a squat, that can manifest itself in either knee injuries, hip pain, low back pain. So if you think about, why this would be important to you, think about your just normal squat pattern. That's getting up out of a chair. That's, sitting down on the toilet. These are things that we do every single day.
Out doing yard work.
These are things we do every single day. If you're not mobile, you're not able to get in it. Think about, you just mentioned it, yard work. Bending over, reaching, picking up something off the ground and moving it to another place. If you don't have the mobility, the flexibility, the strength in the right areas to be able to reach down and bend up in a good position, think about how many people reach over and they pick up their pillow and their back goes out and they say, they think that was what caused. That's not what caused it. It's a lack of mobility. It's poor movement quality. Up to that point. Did you watch the CrossFit games this weekend?
I did. It was weird because I caught a little bit on my phone here and there, and so I wasn't like watching it like the whole time. But like my wife, we're at my parents'
she into
house.
It?
No.
Oh,
no. She doesn't do sports. I'm just kidding. But I was at my parents, and we're sitting there waiting to like go to the pool or something like that, and I pulled it out, and it was the women's finale, and it was right as Tia was finishing. So I was watching it, and she like comes over and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're obsessed." I'm like, I think I've had it 3 times in the last 5 days. I've watched it.
Was this the first year you've watched them?
Yeah.
Because you're a big CrossFitter guy now.
I got my first comp this weekend.
Do you?
Yeah.
This coming weekend?
This coming weekend.
Oh shoot! What is it? The Salina Throwdown?
It's the in-house. It's just the in-house.
The Armadillo Throwdown?
Yeah, I'm like anti-competition. I'm not going to compete.
Why not?
Because I will take it way too serious, and I'll hurt myself. And
that's just a problem.
And then when I lose, I'm not going to be pleasant to be around for 3 weeks.
Yeah, maybe dial that back a little bit. But I think a little friendly competition's fun.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Just don't ruin any relationships up at the gym.
I can't promise it.
The box.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I don't formally do CrossFit. I don't go to a CrossFit gym, and I never have. But I actually started watching them back in 2014, believe it or not. That was back when Rich Froning was doing his whole thing. And if you don't know what we're talking about, you can probably skip forward like 3 or 4 minutes. We'll eventually get to what we're talking about.
We're gonna bro out for a little bit.
But that kind of got me interested initially. It seemed like a good dude, right? Was winning all the time. And so I've watched every year since then. Yeah. And it's a fascinating sport.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing what they're able to do.
Yeah.
And they're strong, they're mobile, they have a great endurance. I know people hate on it and they make fun of it, but those it's unreal what they
do. It's gymnastics, it's strength, it's endurance, it's just mental toughness. And it's funny, and as I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to beat you to it because I know you're about to go to it. And I'm watching the games, and I'm like, frick. Was Ben on this panel to create these exercises? Because did you notice how many loaded carries there were?
Oh, absolutely love it.
We've been talking about it for months now, right?
They understand.
They had the Capitol, which was it was kind of a cool event. They go downtown in Madison, Wisconsin, and there's the Capitol and all that stuff. But they're carrying big sandbags up the stairs, and they're doing farmers carries, and then they're doing the sandbag lifts. They didn't do any Olympic lifts. They did a jerk. They did a jerk session.
The sandbag thing. That was awesome.
And then the girl that won it, by the way,
beast.
Oh,
did you see her legs?
Yeah.
Her legs are bigger than your torso.
100% the size of my shoulders.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, they did a max. They had these sandbags, women and men. And I think the women's went all the way up to 250 pound sandbag. Yeah. And if you've ever seen a sandbag, I mean, they're bulky, they're awkward, obviously heavy. And they had to try to lift the sandbag up to their shoulder. Yeah. Just one time. That was the competition. But it was exciting, man. It was, and the men's went up to 350. They had to bring, so they had 340 out there, and 3 guys got it. So they had to wheel out a heavier bag. They didn't have it out there originally. Dang. And none of the guys ended up getting the 350, but it was phenomenal. But I love the CrossFit game. I think it's, and obviously, the show with the podcast, we've had, the 3 greatest of all time. We've had Rich on, episode 15. We had Matt Frazier on, which was in the last episode of 2021. I forget the exact number, but if you can go back and listen. We had him on again this year. And then we had Tia on this year. So it's cool. It was cool getting another story and then seeing them, obviously, because Rich is still doing on the team. Tia's still dominating in the women. And then Matt is now coaching. And so that was cool to see, a couple of his athletes doing really well. So, if you've never seen CrossFit or the CrossFit Games, or you're too cool and make fun of it, I don't understand why. Go check it out. It's absolutely phenomenal. And
being the guy that was like anti-CrossFit, all about football. I was like all football. And it was so entertaining to watch.
So entertaining.
Like it really
They've got it down to where it's fun.
And I think, they've done a good job, commentators, right? Because they're talking through things, but like in my mind, I'm like, okay, what are you going to talk about? Like people exercising for 5 days? But there was so much, because there's so much strategy that goes into it, and for every single exercise and every single lift, and there's thought process behind it. And I mean, it really was fascinating.
Yeah, it's not just, press the clock and let's go. Like you got to know when to push hard, how many reps to do so you don't burn out, how far to push.
Like there was one, and you got to know your strengths too. Like there was one, it was like a shuttle. And they were doing 50 yards up and back, and they were doing like 400 at a time, 400, 600, 800. And one of the guys, because of the timing, and then you go right into jerks, and the guys were at like 300 pounds. And for reps, as many as you can get. And one of the guys is like, hey, look, I know that I'm not going to win the lift, so I'm going to crush the run, and I'm going to get 100 points for the run. So it's all strategy.
Yeah. I think my favorite event, I don't know if you watched it, was Sunday morning. They had a sled with this like open bucket, and they had 6 kettlebells in the sled, and they'd push it and they'd take 2 kettlebells out, push it, 2 kettlebells out. And when they came back, they had to stop and do clean and jerks with the kettlebell. I thought that was really, I'll probably
load it back up.
I'll probably do that at home. So a variation of that. I thought that was really fun. But anyway, it was great. But I think, obviously endurance, strength, they're deadlifting 475 pounds and at the same time having to walk on their hands. Or having to run 3 miles. Like it was just a wide range of ability. And one of the biggest things, if you notice and you watch, was the mobility aspect. Some of these exercises they're required to do require insane mobility. And that's what I want to talk about today, was just the importance of mobility for anybody, not just CrossFit Games athletes, but anybody, whether you're 60, whether you're 12, whoever you are, the importance of mobility. But before we get there, obviously we do want to thank our partners. First and foremost, Choctaw Casino and Resort. It was hot this weekend, really hot. It would have been a great time to head on up the short drive to I-75 and head on up to the pool up there in Durant, Oklahoma. Man. Get yourself a nice little fruity drink.
We're heading up there soon, and I cannot wait to get into that pool. It's a great, and bring the kiddos. They've got slides. They've got a kids pool.
True story. We drove to Northeast Oklahoma last week, drove by Choctaw. My son, unprompted, my 5-year-old son, didn't even say anything. He goes, whoa, look at that cool pool out there. And he was talking about the Choctaw Resort pool because he saw the big slide. So this is a 5-year-old. So if you think, oh, it's just for adults, it's all gambling. No, kids can have fun up there too. There's arcade game for kids, multiple restaurants, brand new hotel. So absolutely summer's almost over. I think school starts this week. So the window's very narrow.
We start Wednesday. So by the time,
out there.
So when this airs, it's today.
Well, how about celebrate the first week of school?
There you go.
With a nice little
You made it.
Trip. Nice
through
little
the first 2
trip.
days.
That's right.
Let's
so
go
get yourself
school.
to Choctaw. And then when you get back home,
Yeah.
make sure that you're sleeping in a Sleep Number 360 smart bed.
Come on.
That was another thing. Obviously, anytime you travel, we said it before, but anytime I travel, I notice
Yeah.
a massive difference. It's a blessing and a curse, that bed, because when you go away for 3 nights, you definitely tell a difference in your sleep quality. So the 360 smart bed, they're literally replacing all the old school sleep technology with all the hookups and the, crazy machines, and you can have it right there in your home.
Yeah.
Sleep, high quality
Vitals,
sleep
sleep
study.
score,
Yep.
adjust to you. Heated, cooled.
My wife loves the heated.
Oh man, no, and it kind of drives me crazy. I'm a sleep number. Take notes. Like, have a distinct separation, because like sometimes their little foot warmer will kick over to my side, and I'm like, you suck, and then I just can't sleep.
That's right. So yeah, get yourself to sleepnumber.com or find yourself a local store. They're everywhere. I've got one right near my house, so it's great to just pop in there whenever you need something. So anyway, back to
mobility.
Yeah. And when you were in high school specifically, maybe even college, because you were in college, what, 05?
03 to 07.
Okay. So high school, college, was mobility considered very much in your strength training program?
Partly, none with football.
And sorry, hold on. Maybe let's define what we mean when we say mobility.
Yeah.
So when you think of mobility, you think of flexibility more than likely. You think of stretching, right? You sit there, you reach over, you touch your toes. That's old school flexibility training.
Yeah.
That's what people think.
Which is important.
Which is great. Static stretching, awesome.
Yeah.
We're talking more dynamic, meaning movement.
Yep.
We're talking more how do you control the end ranges of motion? How do you, think like deep squats or being able to get your both arms overhead in a good position?
Knee flexibility, ankle flexibility, wrist flexibility, shoulder flexibility.
Yeah, being able to move well. That's what we mean when we say mobility. And Tyler, I'll let you answer. Mm-hmm. I have my experience with mobility in sports.
Yeah.
What was your experience?
Yeah,
like?
so it was more geared around wrestling. Just because there's a huge need. If you're stiff in wrestling and you can't, you get stuck in positions because your ankle's stiff, or you can't get into a position, like it hurts you, like it really does. So there was a lot more work on the wrestling side than there was football. Football, there was very little. It was kind of the same, like your dynamic warm up. You stretch before practice. Again, I don't know how much good that even does.
Right.
But the actual mobility came from the wrestling side. So I was aware, but I thought it just kind of directly translated just to wrestling.
Right.
I was like, all right, if I'm in the bottom position, I've got to be able to, sit on my feet with my feet flat. So I'm sitting on my ankles. And then I've got to be able to, have good knee flexion. And you could tell when you didn't have it. Like if I was injured, like I tore my meniscus my sophomore and junior year in wrestling, and like just not being able to like fully compress your knee. Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
Like it exposes you. So that side of it. And then in college, it was probably more focus on, it was still old school because it was still more focused on like soft tissue, like muscle stretching. Mm-hmm. So we had a strength coach who actually now is the head strength coach for the New England Patriots and been there for a long time. He was great. So he thought completely different than our head coach. He was our assistant there. Head coach was like, he coached the strength program out of the Arnold Schwarzenegger modern bodybuilding encyclopedia. Literally, not kidding.
I know the book.
Not kidding. Oh yeah, we all do. And so all he cared about was, all right, what are our numbers? Squat deep, go heavy, like old school. But this guy's name's Moses Cabrera. Moses was like, all right, now we've got to work on mobility. We've got to work on hip explosion. Mm-hmm. We've got to work on, trigger points. There's things that like, I'm like, what? This is voodoo. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But he took a small group of us, worked with us, and it was, it was huge for us.
Yeah. Then you were more advanced than us. It wasn't mentioned at all in high school, for sure.
Oh yeah.
College, until I actually graduated, the strength coach that came in, actually until my senior year, the strength coach that came in my last year was the first one that ever discussed the importance of mobility. Yeah. And this was 2011, 2010. So still somewhat early, not really. I mean, I guess mainstream, but still somewhat early in the football realm, at least for anything I had ever experienced. And then it wasn't until I went on to my first career in fitness at Equinox, the gym Equinox, or the club Equinox. They hate it when you say gym. Those snotty people.
Bougie.
But that was really when mobility was first introduced.
Yeah.
And really my world was opened up to mobility.
Yeah.
And I am 100% convinced, I tore my ACL my last year in college. I'm 100% convinced there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, we used to tape our ankles all the time. I don't know if you guys did that when y'all played. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I don't know why. Yeah, we would tape them practice.
There was a point where it was required in college that we had to.
So you're stiffening, you're literally immobilizing your ankles, which again, acutely speaking, that's fine. I guess you want to prevent ankle sprains and things like that. But you're not considering up the chain what happens to other joints when you do that. So that was number one. I always tape my ankles and everything. Number two, we never did mobility drills. Never even considered anything outside of squats, cleans, things like that. We didn't move three-dimensionally in our training. And so I'm 100% convinced, had we known about mobility back then,
100%,
and three-dimensional training and strengthening the right areas, lengthening the other areas, if we had known about all this, that would have prevented my injury.
Three-dimensional training, and when I graduated, same thing. Is I worked with a guy who had previously been a strength coach at Fresno State, but just was really good. Had his own private training company, and really worked with all the elite athletes. They went to him, and going through college, you go through combine testing, you go through the shuttle, you go through the L test, you go through your 40, you go through the bench press, you go through the jump, you go through all these things, right? But it wasn't until I graduated, started working with, his name is Steve, and when I started working with him, it was like, okay, you don't just try harder to run faster.
Right.
Because that's all we did all summer. It was like, all right, run your shuttle.
Yep.
It's like, okay, well, if you don't have the hip, ankle, and knee mobility to get low on your shuttle when you're changing directions, there's really not much you can do. You can get your legs stronger. I get it. But if the mobility aspect of it is, that's what's going to help you run a smoother and more efficient time on that, especially with the L test. And so same deal, okay, why can't I turn the hoop as fast as some of these guys? And so when I say turn the hoop is there's a test called the L test. It's called 3-cone or the L test. And so you go up and back on a cone, and then you run like an L shape, and then you come back around. Well, what the scouts are looking for when you're running this L test is your ability to drop your hips, turn around the cone, and run as tight and as fast as you can. But that has to do with hip flexibility, that has to do with ankle flexibility, that has to do with torso, has to do with your C-spine, T-spine. I mean, there's all this stuff that goes into actually being able to move fluid and fast around these turns. And I was a pass rusher, so we're always turning the corner, right? And I just think, man, if I had the focus on this mobility that I'm doing now, post-playing, while I was playing, how much better could I have been?
Yeah, and so we're using a lot of athletic examples. That was our history. Yeah. But if you're sitting here listening to this, I'm not an athlete.
Yeah, what does this have to do with me?
I'm 45 years old. I'm not running L drills at 45 years old. The reason mobility is so important for us now, you and I, we're not athletes anymore, right? Or, in the real sense of the word. I guess CrossFit, they call everybody an athlete, but in the real sense of the word, we're dads, we have desk jobs, we're combating a lot of sedentary behavior. Mobility is important for us. Number one reason, for pain management.
Yep.
Keeping ourselves pain-free. For example, the squat is a good example of this. If your ankles are limited in any way at all on a squat, or your upper back is not strong enough to be able to keep your chest up in a squat, that can manifest itself in either knee injuries, hip pain, low back pain. So if you think about, why this would be important to you, think about your just normal squat pattern. That's getting up out of a chair. That's, sitting down on the toilet. These are things that we do every single day.
Out doing yard work.
These are things we do every single day. If you're not mobile, you're not able to get in it. Think about you just mentioned it, yard work, bending over, reaching, picking up something off the ground and moving it to another place. If you don't have the mobility, the flexibility, the strength in the right areas to be able to reach down and bend up in a good position, think about how many people reach over and they pick up their pillow and their back goes out and they say, they think that was what caused. That's not what caused it. It's a lack of mobility. It's poor movement quality. Up to that point.
And you mentioned it. It's a chain, right? If your ankles are stiff, then you put extra pressure on your knees or hips, right? And if your hips are tight or stiff or they're hurting or whatever, then it puts extra pressure on your back. And then back goes up to your neck. Again, it's literally a chain, and your whole system is tied together. And so if it's not one thing, it becomes a chain reaction. Like there was a period where I would throw my lower back out at least once a year.
Really?
I say throw my lower back out. I'd have some sort of like really, really severe spasm in my back because, again, I was not mobile and I was not conscious about the mobility in my spine. And we talk about like when you hear mobility, again, you think flexibility. We're talking about like joint movement.
Yes.
We're talking about range of motion in joints, like in your spine, in your fingers, in your shoulders, in your knees. When we had knees over toes, that really woke me up too. And I just started CrossFit, and because my knees were stiff, I wasn't squatting the right way. So I was pushing my butt back and not letting my knees come forward. And it put a ton of strain on my back. And I'm like, crap.
Because to stay upright, you're having to lean over more.
In order to do that, in order to keep your knees, and that's how we were trained, right? The old school powerlifting is push your butt back, right? Get your hamstrings and everything activated. But again, now for 9 months that I've been actually active about getting my ankles, just my ankles, not even my knees, but getting my ankles to move better and have more range of motion, I haven't had back pain. So again, to your point is, okay, why does this matter? Why should we care? Literally just bending down and doing gardening, I can now literally just sit in a squat because now that's a comfortable position for me because my ankles aren't super stiff.
That's awesome.
Which is crazy. Yeah. And it's like, again, think about just picking up food after your kids or your grandkids or whatever. But like the mobility aspect of it is huge. And I mentioned spine as well. Like having motion in your spine and not stiff. We all sit at, not we all. A lot of us sit at a desk or are stationary you talk about. When your C-spine and T-spine, and I'm going to let Ben explain the difference in them, but essentially when you are stagnant and you are not getting motion in those joints, what happens? When bones stick together and they're pressing against, what happens to them?
They get locked in.
They get locked up. The
muscles around them.
Muscles around them get tight, right? So those get tight. But even in the joints, right? Bones, that becomes an issue because they get tighter and tighter and tighter. And then now there's not any movement there. And that's when you start to have some nerve issues. That's when you have spasms. That's when you have big time issues. And that's, okay, now I got to go see, a spinal doctor because I got to figure this out. So like even, chiropractic, that gets a really, really bad rap because you hear a lot of people like, oh, they're a bunch of kooks. And there's some kooks. There's some kook chiropractors out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I'm going to cure the common cold and I can cure this with chiropractic. No, you can't. No, you can't. But it is important to get that mobility, and it's not popping and it's not this. It's getting the range of motion back into your joints. That's what chiropractor, it's the manipulation of joints. And so getting that and doing it the right way and staying regular on it and getting it, what it does is adjustments will get range of motion. It will break it up. It's like a rusty wheel, right? It's when you first do it, it's stiff, but you break the rust off and it starts to move, okay? And then you do it again, and more rust comes off. And then you throw a little WD-40 in it, the lubricant that our bodies naturally make when you get range of motion into joints. Okay, now it's starting to move. It's a process kind of deal. Mm-hmm. It's not just hey, my back feels stiff. Can you pop my back one time? So chiropractic is something that can be supplemented, and that's a form of mobility that we're discussing today. And it's not just that. And then you look at like tendons. Then you look at ligaments. I mean, the importance of all of those things in longevity of just functionality. My dad, for example, is about to be going through knee replacements because he has not done range of motion in his knees. And just like knees over toes, when we had him on, is when you're not moving the joint, it starts to atrophy. It starts to die because it dries out. It's not getting the natural lubricants from our body into those. And those areas just start to waste away. Yep. And that's arthritis, right? And so that's what we know of in pain. And so again, fingers, knees, shoulders, elbows, ankles, toes, like we get arthritis in these joints because we are not moving.
Yeah. Yeah, and I even now I tend to neglect mobility more than I should, and I think the main reason for that is, number one, it's boring. There's certain exercises that aren't as sexy. You know, everyone wants to get in. They want to squat. They want to hang clean. They want to overhead press. They want to do all the fun stuff, sled push. All that stuff is awesome, but if you're not taking care of the mobility aspect first, if you're not moving well first. You're never going to be able to do that type of stuff to its full capacity. Yep. You're not going to see the full benefit of it. Yep. And you're likely to lead yourself to injury. So, but when we get restricted on time, I only got 45 minutes.
What are you going to cut?
Yeah. It's like, what am I going to cut? I'm going to cut out the warm up, right? Cause that's not fun. But I've got to get out of the mode of, no, that's actually what's going to set. You talk about it before, the 10,000 workout. Yeah. Am I going to do something today that's going to prevent me from being able to work out in the future?
Yeah.
And mobility is a great way to start. And so when do you do mobility? You do it at the beginning of the workout. It's a great way to warm your body up. But number two, now that you've opened your body up and you're exploring these new ranges of motion you're able to control, now you need to go do the workout that's now going to cement that into your central nervous system. Yeah. So it's great to do mobility drills. That's awesome. But if you're not going to go and put now strength in that new range of motion and really set that into place, so that's where I would suggest do it anytime you want. Yeah, but if you're going to only do it once, do it before a workout so that you're able to cement that new movement through your workout.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the things that I'm still struggling with, that I'm still working on, is wrist mobility. Like I never thought about wrist mobility, right? It's whatever. But in what we do a lot of front rack positions where we've got to be able to hold a barbell on our shoulders in front with our hands still on the bar. And from that position, we'll do a lot of overhead presses or jerks or different movements where you can't just have your fingertips on the bar like a traditional front squat. And so wrist mobility has been a challenge. And you say, in the beginning of workout, that's great. So I do a ton. Anytime we're in a front rack position, I do a ton of wrist mobility to warm up, to get myself to the point. But I would also argue that at the end of the workout, it's just as important too, because you are really warm, and now you can push that movement to a further place because you are already warm. And so now you can really take it to a place where it's like, okay, now I'm, as opposed to, okay, my wrist being at a 90 degree, okay, maybe I can take it to a 100 degree angle, and it may take it a little bit more just because you're warm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would just only argue, and it's not that it's an argument. I think they're both great. I just think if you're going to have to pick one or the other before, because think about your example, getting your wrist in the right position. If you do that at the end, that's awesome. But then now you're not actually going and doing the actual exercise. So if you do the wrist mobility first, and then you go and now you have that heavy barbell, guess what? That barbell, you're going to hold that position. Your central nervous system knows what position I've got to be in. So I'm not saying you're wrong. And you're exactly right that you will be more mobile after the workout and you're able to do this. But I just think if you want to cement it into place, do it first, then do your workout.
Yeah, and one of the cool things that the gym that I go to, we call it body armor, and it's a part of every single workout, and you have to do it. It's built into it. And so the body armor is either some sort of core or some sort of mobility.
Yeah. I love that.
And it is strengthening your body, and mobility is strengthening your body and protecting it from injury. And so that's just something that I think is really important. Yeah. Always, if there's a movement, like I said, I'll always warm it up first. But let's just say, like, hey, I've got a problem area, like my lats are really, really tight. That's part of the reason why I can't get into like a real great front rack is because my lats are tight. So, okay, I'm going to do my wrists, I'm going to do my shoulders, but then after I'm going to really focus on getting my lats broken up, loosened up, and I'm going to do that. Here's the other thing too, is just like a real life example of me. And, you know, I mentioned the front rack. The other thing too is like shoulder mobility. We I think highly underestimate the importance of having mobile shoulders and big ranges of motion. For me, it's actually hindering me from certain workouts, because like I can't take my shoulder and take it vertical and then back behind my head as far as I should be able to. So that's another area that I've got to work on. Like muscle ups is something we watched on the games. It was one of the last events, right? And they're a cool looking exercise. But if you don't have like brute strength where you can just literally pull yourself up on top of the bar, above the bar, like you've got to have mobility to get your kipping or your motion into it to get on top of it. And so I finally got them down, but every time I do them, I hurt my shoulder, and it's actually my bicep tendon that is attached to my shoulder every time, because I just don't have that mobility and I haven't been intentional about it.
Yeah. And so whether you're Tyler and you're looking to perform at the gym, you got a big competition coming up.
Big comp.
Mobility is going to be important for you so you can get in the right position. And for you also, competition, last piece I'll touch on this, there's certain standards in these movements that you have to hit. And if you're not mobile, you're not able to get and set those standards. Your performance is going to fail for that reason. Yeah. But if you're somebody who's like, I'm never going to be doing muscle ups, if your shoulders are lacking mobility, think about when you go to pick up your grandkids or when you go to move that big heavy sandbag, in your garden. Lack of shoulder mobility, lack of hip mobility, these things will lead to injury. If you're in pain,
ankle or hip or knee mobility, and you've got to bend over at the waist to pick up a sandbag, guess what's going to happen?
All that stress is going to your low back.
Yeah.
Every single bit of it.
Yeah.
So whether you're 60 and you have no desire to ever compete in a fitness competition, or you're 12 to 12, 15, 18 and you're playing sports, everybody can benefit from mobility. So how I want to close this out is, what are some resources that we turn to for good mobility drills? Tyler, it sounds like your gym is awesome about mobility. So go join a CrossFit box where the coach knows. Go join a gym and with a personal trainer that knows what they're doing. If you don't have those resources, there's tons of great resources online. A couple of my favorite, number one, first and foremost, is Dr. Kelly Starrett. He wrote a book, I think it was 12, 13 years ago, something like that. It's been a while.
More, yeah,
called The Supple Leopard.
Literally, like if you get this book,
you'll know everything.
First of all, you'll have more than enough information and exercises and mobility to last you for a couple years.
Yeah, he literally breaks down every single joint in the entire body, gives you multiple exercises to do for each joint in the entire body. So again, that's Becoming a Supple Leopard by Dr. Kelly Starrett. Another one, less well known, but I read this book in 2015, I think it was. It's called A Guide to Better Movement by Todd Hargrove. It's a little more unconventional. It's a little weird, but it's a fascinating book. Again, just another take. Another couple of resources I like. Actually, this is more of a CrossFit resource. The GoWOD mobility app is a great app. I think they're doing like a 14-day. We have no affiliation with them, but I think they're doing like a 14-day free trial, which it's like, why wouldn't you? I think it's like 10 to 15 minute, just little mobility drills you can do every single day. So check that out. Another one I like is called Kinestretch, K-I-N-E stretch.
Like kinesiology.
Yeah, like kinesiology stretch. They're also, I learned a lot from them. Those are a couple
go to
of
a yoga
resources.
Studio.
There's yoga's great.
There's multiple.
Pilates is another good one.
Yeah. Look, if you feel like, hey, this is something that I've neglected for a long time in my life, this is probably something I need to do, which everybody who's listening should be thinking that, is just dig in. I mean, look up yoga, look up mobility, look up stretching. I mean, there's businesses called the Stretch Lab now. I mean, there's literally on every corner, there's opportunity, because it is that important that, there's this massive explosion of businesses surrounding mobility.
Yeah. The majority of people that I encounter on a day-to-day basis will benefit from mobility training. There's a few very, very small percentage that are hypermobile, they call it, and they don't need more mobility. They actually need more strength. That's a very small percentage. That's more your gymnasts and things like that.
I would say
The majority of us,
it's the yogis.
yeah, the majority of us need more mobility.
Yeah.
We're sedentary a lot of times. We're stiff. So the majority of us need mobility. Again, those are great resources. But really, if you just go to Google or you go to YouTube, you're likely to find something that's going to help you. Now, you can spot the BS. Anybody can.
Yeah.
But you're likely going to find something helpful.
Yeah.
The resources are out there. This isn't 2008 anymore where it's like, how do I find, this or that? There's plenty of help out there. It's just got to be important to you.
Yeah.
And the only many times, unfortunately, the only reason it becomes important is because we get injured or we have some pain or nagging injury.
There's no reason we should not be doing some form of mobility work 7 days a week.
Absolutely.
Because guess what? You can do that on recovery days.
That's right.
Like you don't have to, you don't need to work out every single day. Do some sort of anaerobic workout, but you can do mobility every single day.
Yeah. We talk about being ready for anything.
Yep.
Big component for being ready for anything is being pain-free, being able to move well.
That's right.
And that's what mobility does for you. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you guys now go and do your own research and get more mobile, become more supple, if you will.
Yes, it is a great book, honestly. It's so good.
It is fantastic. So,
and he's got a bunch of YouTube videos, and you're like, this dude, like in jeans, and this was before stretchy jeans came out, and this dude's doing like the craziest movements. Like his hip flexibility is crazy.
Oh, and that reminds me, another great resource. This guy he's on YouTube called Smash Works.
Oh yeah,
the word smash and works is WERX. He is a physical therapist, phenomenal. With movement and injury prevention. Darren actually does a lot of this guy's stuff, and it's helped him out tremendously. So Smashworks is another resource for you guys. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please help us by sharing the podcast. Text to a friend, post it to your Instagram, and then also follow us on Instagram at one.shot.pod. On our YouTube channel, we've got another Saturday Suffering coming up soon. At the end of the month, we're going to do another workout. I think y'all will enjoy that one. It's going to, again, challenge Tyler and I in a way that we don't like being challenged, which is with our endurance.
Love it.
So it'll be fun. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out on that one. But anyway, hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. Wish Tyler luck. Shoot him a DM for this weekend. Hope he doesn't get hurt. He's old now.
Yeah.
Hopefully he does his mobility drills
before
the big competition. So
we'll try.
Anyway, go get him. Go kick some ass.
Thanks, man.
All right, y'all. Appreciate it.